Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Podcast. I'm Billy Embody. With me is Shea Dixon. As always, we've got a lot to talk about involving five stars, flip watch, all the things as LSU hosts Alabama this weekend. So a big visitor list will be happening in Baton Rouge this weekend. But first, we are presented by our friends at Status Jet. Go to statusjet.com right now and check out how you could be flying in style to LSU games. Basketball season's underway. This is a great opportunity to reach out to them and take advantage of their discount that they're offering. Mention the bengaltiger.com and they will give you a discount on a round trip flight, whether it's for clients, friends, family. Learn how you should do game day and do some of these trips that LSU still has ahead, because this is the best way to fly. Private jet life down to Gainesville. You don't want to be dealing with the Orlando airport this time of year. So reach out to Status Jet today, and they will offer you a discount when you mention the Bengal Tiger. So, Shea, speaking of flying the sweet life, LSU quarterback Bryce
Good
Underwood.
segue, Billy. I was about to say the
Bryce,
first two guys we're talking about will be flying that jet life probably for the next 15, 20 years.
Yes, exactly. And especially the first one, the number one overall player in the country, and that is Bryce Underwood, who is expected in town this weekend. Shea, there's a lot of buzz around Portnoy and NIL and all of these things. But for those of you that are on the bengaltiger.com, and you can join for $1 for your first week, 50% off for your first year right after that. So a huge deal going on right now. We've been all over this, especially you, Shea, detailing where things stand with LSU and Bryce Underwood right now.
I mean, Billy, for me, nothing has changed from, I won't say when he committed in January. If anything, it's strengthened, right? You're now beyond 300 days committed for Bryce Underwood. You're less than a month out from when he signs, when all these guys sign in December's early signing period, which is moved up to December 4th. I could lay this out in a million ways. I have. Look, shout out to all the members of the Bengal Tiger who've ridden out the past couple of weeks of Bryce news with us, but I've tried each day to provide some updates, clarity, my thoughts. And Billy, I try to reverse this and view it from an LSU perspective, right? And yes, they did have a number one quarterback in Louisiana who didn't have LSU interest in Arch Manning. A little different there because we knew from the jump that Arch Manning was not going to go to LSU or end up at LSU. But any prospect, flip it, if it's not a court, some high 5-star wide receiver or whatever, if they live 30 minutes from campus, no matter how often I might hear, hey, look, LSU's making a push. Hey, we've got some NIL money. If that prospect hasn't visited campus since in more than a year, since that new head coach, Sherron Moore in Michigan's case, since he's been on staff, since they've had the new staff, he hasn't been to a game, hasn't sat down with them, hasn't gone to a summer camp, hasn't gone to a junior day, none of that, and has remained committed to the school, LSU in this case, and has visited no other schools. I don't know how much confidence I'd have after a weekend when LSU publicly kind of, and again, this is Michigan, puts it out there that, hey, we've made this big NIL push. You host the number one team in the country. It's a sold out stadium, and Bryce doesn't make the 30-minute drive. A month out, less than a month out from signing day, Billy, viewing this through an LSU lens of this imaginary prospect or prospects of the past, if they showed that sort of track record of non-interest, I would be at the point of saying, look, guys, this is just not going to happen. And yes, we're in the NIL era, but LSU's been right there for the NIL discussions and the entire way, or he wouldn't be committed and stay committed. So when he no-showed again, which again, he wasn't expected to be there, but there's all this buzz, right? There's, as you said, that started with Portnoy all the way down to Michigan boosters saying above, richer than Portnoy saying, we will give money to the athletics program. But I don't think that translates to Bryce Underwood. And again, I'll take a step back here. And look, the Wolverine, EJ Holland, you can check out his reporting. they're trying to get the quarterback who just decommitted from them back in the class. They may make a move to offer a new quarterback in this senior class. So by no means is that staff banking on Underwood landing at Michigan, no matter what sort of vibes might come out of different people in Ann Arbor. I'd have to believe it to see it. And I've seen nothing that shows me that he has that interest in Michigan that he would push past being committed to LSU.
Yeah, I think, and EJ kind of reiterated that too when it comes to will Underwood ultimately flip, and that's what people want to know. They don't necessarily, they just want to see the baby, and the baby being the number one overall prospect end up at LSU or
this is a big
Michigan.
deal. I mean, we've talked
Yeah,
about it,
this
right?
is huge.
I mean, this is the biggest recruit of the modern era, rankings wise, next to Fournette, but he's a quarterback.
Yeah, and can come right in and maybe compete. Maybe that's the expectation when you have guys like this in Michigan. They know that their quarterback situation, if you've seen it, if you've seen the Michigan offense, quite frankly, the last couple of years, it is different than a modern offense in a sense. And Underwood is somebody that they would love to bring in. But as EJ said, as you said, we're going to have to see it to believe it. And that is the caveat of the NIL era, right? You don't flip. You're not flipping. You're not going to X school until all of a sudden they are. But in Bryce Underwood's case, I really don't see him moving off of this LSU commitment. Joe Sloan was just up there to see him as well as he, goes through his playoffs. I mean, this is a guy that I'm wearing the On3 Elite Series hat. He wouldn't even put on any other hats. Wouldn't even entertain all of that. I know that was back in the end of the beginning of summer, but he's been locked in.
Yeah, and look, I'll say this too. You can take it beyond the commitment, an NIL push. There's also the reality of what Bryce has spoken about, and this is real. I'm not saying that, oh, well, development or a system. Yeah, but NIL. No, well, as Bryce said, you get drafted in the top 10, that $30 million hits a lot harder than whatever NIL deal. Getting to that second contract and setting record-setting money as these quarterbacks do each time is the kind of focus of where he's at. Billy, look at Michigan and LSU. They're completely different offenses, and they've had a track record in recent years. Even when Michigan wins a national championship a year ago, Jaden Daniels is the face of the rookie class in the NFL right now. Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas are two of the best young receivers in the NFL right now. LSU churns those guys out on a regular basis, and they throw the ball all over the field. Prior to the A&M game, Nuss led the nation in completions. So when then you watch Michigan, who's just ground and pound, they're rotating quarterbacks, they're trying to figure out a way. Who's Michigan's OC next year? Is it the same OC they have now? I mean, they're in a spot with Sharon Moore, who moved from interim head coach to where you really can't count anything out in terms of them needing to make changes to get where Michigan wants to be. Because, again, for those that aren't paying attention to Michigan football, they're 500 right now. What are they, Billy? And they still got some tough games left, including Ohio State. I think that they'll end up with a portal quarterback and that LSU signs Bryce Underwood. I think that all of this smoke, yes, Michigan can make an NIL push. I think that LSU can match it and goes well beyond that in any terms of development relationship argument you could have.
This recruitment, out of all the ones that I think are high profile enough when it comes to LSU, this is the one that maybe doesn't worry me. I mean, I don't want to say at all because, again, NIL era, but.
And he's the number one prospect, and he's from 30 minutes from this place, and he's a quarterback, and they need a quarterback.
Yeah. But I'm not stressing that he's going to flip. Maybe it's a little bit of the gut feel too, but I know this has become a massive storyline. I know what Michigan's putting together, and On3's had reporting on that, but just sometimes you do have to trust the gut, and as well as being educated in it, which I feel like we are. He just seems like he's ready to start his career at LSU.
And let's say I agree with you, but let's remind people, Joe Sloan, the OC quarterbacks coach who's led this recruitment, was in Belleville this past Friday night to watch his first playoff game, Bryce's, and he will make his official visit this weekend, which is big news, obviously, huge news, that his parents, extended family, sister, everyone's coming down for the Alabama game. So he'll play Friday night. He'll be here Saturday. He'll be here Sunday. He'll head back to Belleville on Monday. If you're an LSU fan, root for Belleville. They've been to the state title game all 3 years of Bryce's high school career. But with the signing day moved up, Billy, this isn't getting talked up enough. And I know each state's different. Michigan kind of ends a little bit earlier than most because of weather, obviously. But that if they win Friday and the next week, they'll continue playing all the way up until the end of November. Then December 4th is signing day. So when you think about, can Michigan get him in for a game or in for a weekend visit or anything like that, it's tough to do when Friday night you're playing and then Saturday you're at film study until noon. So the longer Belleville keeps this playoff run alive, which just started a week ago, and they've been there 3 straight years, I think the better for LSU. Look, you get everything ironed out this weekend on the official. He goes back and he wraps up his playoff run. If they win a state title, he turns around in 3 days later and signs with LSU or signs with somebody, right? Presumably LSU. This can go by very quickly here if LSU goes ahead and kind of nips it in the bud this weekend, if it's not already there.
Right. And I think they've laid so much groundwork that it wouldn't shock me if that was the end result. It wouldn't shock me if Bryce came out and said, what a weekend in Baton Rouge, I'm done. I know he doesn't really do much media. His dad, Jay's great, kind of handles that for the most part, but they have a chance to shut it down, I would say, after this.
I agree. I also think that if they don't say anything, I don't expect the number one player, committed or not, who's a quarterback who in the NIL era, to be saying much late in the game when that final deals are happening. Just as you don't hear guys who are on a team that might become free. Guys aren't just talking up things right before the contract signed. But I'm with you. Bryce has shown the reason that you have a gut feel is because Bryce has shown nothing. This isn't a kid who committed to LSU and then took like 5 visits to Michigan or 5 visits to other schools and then just kept saying like, oh, I'm locked in. Don't, there's no worry or whatever. He's done nothing but visit LSU multiple times since his commitment and now come back for this game.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point that I really didn't even necessarily think about it, is in terms of why the gut, because I don't necessarily always like, having a gut feeling about recruiting because, that it just, a lot of the times, like we say, you can track the visits, you can track this, track that. And with Bryce Underwood, that's been the case, is tracking the visits, tracking the true, interest showed even before he committed. It pointed to LSU, and that carried the day. And that's why he committed early. And that's why he was ready to make that decision early. So there's going to be conversations. There's going to be, double checking. If you're LSU, that Joe Sloan continues to recruit him like he's uncommitted, or maybe even like he's committed elsewhere, because that's just what you need to do with the number one prospect, in a sense, is you got to recruit him through the moment he steps on campus, in a way, with today's day and age. So LSU's done a terrific job in this recruitment. I stand by that. I don't think a late NIL centered push is necessarily, especially from Michigan, is going to change things. Like, I don't think things are going to change anyway. But if it became a true like NIL recruitment, I mean, wouldn't there be other programs sniffing around in this one?
100%.
So
there'd be a lot more than just Michigan involved.
Yeah. I mean, Miami's going to have to replace Cam Ward.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Michigan wasn't even the last school he visited before LSU. It was Bama.
That's true. It's a good point. Good point. Well, we hope we calmed everyone down around the Bryce Underwood recruitment. We know it's a hot topic, and like we talked about, it's the number one prospect in the country, and a transformative prospect to sign if you're LSU or any program. Whenever you can get a guy like that, it changes the trajectory, it changes the expectations, and even at a place as high of expectations as LSU, Bryce Underwood fever is going to be hitting campus. And I can tell you guys that our Bengal Tiger subscribers have also gotten the fever from more Rhoback. They don't need more cowbell. They need more Rhoback. And you can get your Rhoback on Rhoback.com, RHOBACK.com. And you can use code Bengal Tiger 20 for 20% off your first order at Rhoback.com. It's for first-time customers only, but we can tell you it is worth that discount code. So however you need to work it out, folks, your friends, whatever, try to take advantage of that and get hooked up with some of their quarter zips. It's starting to cool down a little bit, and you need to be ready to roll for this weekend with Alabama coming to town. So maybe you can get a quick ship going. You can get the solid LSU classic quarter zip. I love quarter zip season. It is hitting very, very soon here officially. And so this is the perfect time to use that 20% off discount code with code Bengal Tiger today, Bengal Tiger 20 today. They also have the shorts. They have joggers. So it is starting to cool down. It is the perfect time to get on Rhoback.com and use that discount code. We've had a bunch of people do it, and folks are loving the Rhoback as we are wearing it today as well. So the hoodies are out in full force. Just a little sponsored hoodie action here. So hope you guys check out Rhoback today and support them. All right.
Where'd you get the On3 Elite hat? I went and I didn't get one. Did you take that out of a box somewhere at the office?
I did. They're purging. They're purging. For next year, they're already planning on.
Well, with the good people of it, and I'm trying to figure out how before I post it to the board we're going to do this, but I do have like 5,000 Bengal Tiger hats, Founders Club hats now sitting in my front area.
I'm sure Emily loves it.
Yeah,
Emily loves that. Yeah,
make a board post and figure out how to ship these to everybody. So,
yeah, this is those Founder Club hats are elite. And if you didn't ever get one,
I saw a bunch of them in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of like collector's items, I would say, at this point, especially with the big staff the Bengal Tiger has now, just the whole crew killing it. It's only going to get more valuable. It's like a stock, or some stocks, I guess.
No, I'm holding a lot of shares. So how do we get rid of them, Billy?
Yeah. So if you never received one, just get on to the BengalTiger.com message board. That's where we're talking all day, every day. And we're talking a lot about five-star defensive lineman Jahkeem Stewart, who will be at LSU this weekend for his official visit. So Bryce Underwood, five-star quarterback commit, will be in town for his official visit. So will Jahkeem Stewart. And the on-3 RPM reflects the Tigers as the leader. And we've talked a lot about him over the last couple of years now. He's been on the radar since really 7th, 8th grade. And now he gets to come take in LSU, Alabama as his recruiting process gets closer and closer to that finish line.
For those watching on YouTube, for those not, I should say, I apologize. I may go in and change his profile pic. That doesn't look real. Him in a car jersey, that looks photoshopped.
I mean, it might be.
Was he at team picture day for Carr? He doesn't even play. I may change that. That doesn't look real.
You know when the NFL guys get traded and all of a sudden they already have a little
100%.
Turtleneck on? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's what it looks like.
That is.
Yeah. So LSU fans are hoping he does have an LSU jersey on in his profile picture at one point. And this is a good opportunity for LSU to get a statement win. Brian Kelly and the Tigers continue to be very, very good in Tiger Stadium, especially at night. And as this game approaches, this is the guy that everybody's going to be talking about this weekend. You know, it's going to be an opportunity for LSU to stay undefeated under Brian Kelly at night games in Tiger Stadium. And a win like that, I think, every now and again can really help seal the deal. It helps in a way seal the deal with Bryce Underwood last year.
We're going to we'll have it up on Thursday, I believe it is, but a roundtable where going into this official visit weekend, which comes on, as we said, on the same weekend as Bryce Underwood, for Jahkeem Stewart, who the very Cliff Notes version of it was at St. Aug, had to move to Edna Carr to reclassify. So he played his sophomore year a year ago, sophomore season at St. Aug. Now this would be his junior season. A reclassify means he's going to move into the senior class. And because of that, could not play for Carr, moved there strictly for the academic side. Now he says he's going to sign in December and enroll in January. Obviously, he's fitting a lot in to a small window here, but regardless, we do know he will sign in December. Ohio State, Oregon already got visits. LSU's this weekend, then Southern Cal. In terms of officials, those four schools, and then December 4th he'll sign. So we're gonna have a roundtable. Julie, Jarrett, myself, Billy. We're all gonna give our thoughts. We're gonna get Steve and Chad on the national side to share theirs. But let's give a 1 minute snippet, 30-second snippet. Billy, what is your thought midway through here when he told Chad Simmons and On 3 this week that after Oregon and Ohio State visits, that two teams stand out, two visits left. He didn't name the teams. I could guess them, given that he's taken two visits, but could be others. He's made visits to all these schools plenty. But where do you stand here? Because I think a lot of people aren't sure if it's not LSU, like what to believe. Who is the competition?
Yeah, I think for LSU, they're one of the two teams, and I would say Ohio State is the other team. They're I think the team that's doing a really, really good job. I think with Larry Johnson being the lead recruiter there at Ohio State, he's got a long track record of developing players. I'm sure Oregon has felt good at times. I'm sure Alabama has, or excuse me, USC has felt good at times. But as he gets into this LSU visit, with the Alabama game ahead, this is kind of what I feel like his recruitment's been building towards, is a visit like this to really solidify where LSU stands for him. And I think that's the team to beat. And Ohio State's going to have a chance to swing back. This is going to go to a December 4th decision during the early signing period. But I just really like where LSU stands here, and I do feel like it's Ohio State battling with LSU.
I think it's one of those things, Billy, where I'm not sure if I think Oregon, for a kid from reserve, Oregon is pretty far away. Now, I'm not counting out Dan Lanning. They recruit very well. They're obviously playing very well. Number one team in the country. They've got NIL money. Anything that, a good recruiting staff, anything that you could say on that front, I'm not going to knock. They obviously do things very well. It just seems far from home. And that's a battle Oregon has to face with a lot of kids they recruit. I think this is Ohio State or LSU. And I think both offer up veteran D-line coaches, both offer up schools he likes, and both offer up programs that have won at a high level in recent years. I have my pick in on LSU, all of that. I will until I feel differently. Obviously, when he reclassified and now is making this visit, a lot comes down to this final month. My gut just tells me it's one of those. And I'll admit, I don't know where he's going. I don't know if he knows where he's going, but I do think I'm with you that this weekend at LSU, the visit and what's talked about will be a lot different than any other he's ever been on at LSU, because it'll be for the first time as a member of this current class and someone who is signing in a month and not in a year and a month. And I think because of that, they're going to have to cram a lot into a little window, a couple of days. But I think it'll be planned out well enough to where when he leaves that visit, LSU will have a pretty good feel of how this is going to kind of play out. Much like with Underwood, how does this unfold? I think that LSU has a good grip on Stewart after the weekend.
Yeah, and that's what you want if you're LSU, and that's what I think the people around Jahkeem and the people around this recruitment, including Jahkeem, would probably want. This isn't a program that I think LSU or a program that Jahkeem would kind of want to jerk around in any way, I think. And that doesn't mean he has to end up going to LSU or he has to commit this weekend or whatever, but I just feel like he's been around so much, and there's always been this mutual respect, I think, between the two, the side recruiting him and then from Jahkeem's side. And he's a very respectful kid overall, but I just think they're going to want to hear a little bit of clarity as far as, hey, where do things stand? And we want to hear it from you versus we feel like we've done a ton of good things in this recruitment and we hope it pays off.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think that, and for those that are asking, does LSU have the NIL money for a guy like Stewart reclassifying when you've already kind of maybe played out how you were allocating everything in the current class? I would say yes. You're dipping into the future pool then, or you're getting some extra donors in because um, the reclassification was always on the table. So you knew that if the time came that you had to pivot and kind of hurry things up there. So from everything I've heard, fine on that front. And look, all of that will be discussed this weekend, Billy. I think that's kind of what official visits, especially those a month out from signing day, for an uncommitted kid who is being courted by the who's who of college programs. It's one where, as I noted, you're fitting a lot of stuff into a little amount of time here, but good to land the official visit, I think, at this point where you're only about 4 weeks to go.
Yeah, completely agree. So, who do you want to talk about next? We've got quite the run of kind of flip watch type of players on LSU side of things. We know this is another hot button group here, but let's reset things. Who are the guys that you feel like are at least worth monitoring down the stretch for LSU fans? Maybe at least on the radar. Recruiting can be unpredictable, but who are the guys that are
Yeah, sure.
on? Yeah,
Um, Look, we talked about Underwood already plenty. I know DJ Pickett, a 5-star, is another that people say, look, he's visited Miami a lot. His cousin plays for Miami. He's a top 100 player who is now in the Hurricanes. His other cousin, who we interviewed, Cannon Pickett, goes to a lot of the games. He's trending to Miami. But even Cannon said DJ recruits him to LSU. DJ will be at LSU for the game this weekend, so he'll spend time around Bryce and everybody. Good news on that front. So like you move past that group, I think Derek Meadows is where I start. Two guys, Derek Meadows and Mike Tyler. These guys are on offense. Derek Meadows is a receiver who's from Michigan, goes to Bishop Gorman in Vegas, and had visited Notre Dame nearly double-digit times. And being from Michigan, had visited Michigan plenty. He hasn't visited LSU since he committed in late July. And he's now visited Michigan this past weekend for a game and now Notre Dame this weekend. From that right there tells you he's looking around. Now, from talking with people, nothing's done yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he flipped and ended up going back home to his home state in Michigan or at Notre Dame, the school that everybody thought he was going to commit to before suddenly he took visits to LSU and Bama and said he wanted to play in the SEC and he picked LSU. The other being Mike Tyler, and for similar reasons, but a lot more based off that home feel. This is a kid who's from Columbia. He plays at Hammond High in Columbia, South Carolina. And LSU landed his commit over the summer. Sloan and Nagel, the tight ends coach, evaluated guys, brought him in, worked him out, loved him. He's had a good start to his senior year. And simultaneously, South Carolina missed out on an in-state tight end who had flipped his commitment this past week, or a week ago, I should say. Skinner is now committed to Kentucky. He had previously been committed to an out-of-state team. I think it was Syracuse, maybe. But he doesn't, or Cincinnati, but he doesn't end up going to South Carolina. They're putting the clamps down, it seems, on trying to get Mike Tyler to stay home. He was at the win over A&M, which is obviously a pretty great home win, and the environment was rowdy. So there's buzz, and even from Mike telling Steve Wiltfong that, hey, look, I've got some things to think about. And Billy, I view it again like I did Bryce Underwood. If I'm viewing this through an LSU lens, if a Baton Rouge kid or a Lafayette kid or a New Orleans kid, had an offer and was getting pressed late, I would just presume they probably end up at LSU instead of going to South Carolina or whatever out-of-state school it is. So LSU is going to try to hold on to him. They like him a lot. But you can understand that if Billy, literally the team in your city comes calling and pressing a month out of signing day, it gives you an opportunity to stay home and be with family. And you understand all of that.
yeah, of course. And we've tracked with Derek Meadows as well, Notre Dame a little bit, and they were kicking the tires and trying to make something happen there. And I think those two are the ones to really watch. Jaden Breaker's been another that has been at least kind of hemming and hawing over whether he'll take some visits or not. But he's kind of always found his way back to Baton Rouge and said all the right things. So we'll kind of, keep an eye on those three, I would say, as well as, to see what other visits matriculate. But um, it's one of those things where you can be confident or being told the right things, and then all of a sudden it just kind of happens. And yeah, for whatever realization it takes these prospects, and they all have different priorities and things like that, sometimes it just pushes them over the top. But Mike Tyler is in a tight end class with another tight end and JD LaFleur. LSU is deep at tight end as well, that we're seeing, and guys that are going to continue to develop. And then Derek Meadows, I don't necessarily understand, outside of wanting to stay close to home, what the intrigue is. Notre Dame hasn't put out a receiver in the league in a long time. And Michigan's offense, we talked about it earlier in the pod, kind of a tough offense to get excited about if you're a wide receiver. So I don't really understand those decisions and how they work out. But like you said, it's got to be location based, and LSU is going to have to fight that battle and just keep hammering home all the opportunities they'll have in this offense with Bryce Underwood, and maybe if they see the field early, maybe with Garrett Nussmeier as well.
Yeah, I think that really, look, a guy like Meadows, that doesn't surprise me if and especially when you're playing high school football away from home already, like he's out in Las Vegas doing it, that do you get that sense of, hey, I'm going to go back closer to home? We'll see what happens. I think that Breaker, LSU DC Blake Baker was out at Breaker's game this past Friday. So got to see him in person, obviously in Georgia, and we'll monitor the visits, Billy, but right now it seems like things are solid, and he'll be in this weekend. The goal was to get his mom to come in this weekend. I'm not sure if she's going to be able to get off work or not. Last I heard, I'll text Jaden again, but at the least, he and his father will be back for the Alabama game.
And that's what you want, and that's what he's kind of done throughout this recruitment is end up coming back to LSU at certain points where other teams are pushing. So I still think he's one of the most underrated guys in this recruiting class that LSU has, and it wouldn't shock me at all if he ended up being a multi-year pro and maybe getting drafted on as high as day 2, because he's got the great frame, and frame is everything in the SEC, and I think that he's just really finding his way as a prospect, and going to be a really good one for LSU in particular if he ends up playing for Blake Baker, and you can see the development that he's already brought to this defense and the linebackers. So, Shea, if you don't have anything else, we can wrap this up. We're going to have a ton of coverage on the visitor list this weekend in Tiger Stadium. It's going to be a monster weekend. So go to thebengaltiger.com, take advantage of that first week for $1. So you get on board, and then you get hit with the 50% off annual after that first week. So you are getting in at a great price. And then look, people stick around and hang out with us and chat on the message board, get all the coverage. We've got a huge team covering the Tigers now at the Bengal Tiger, as well as the On3 national team. So make sure you're a part of it. It's going to be a crazy couple months with transfer portal coming up, signing day.
Yes, the portal window.
Yep. If LSU can win this weekend, college football playoff push. So this is a big time to get on the Bengal Tiger, and it's basketball season too. So what a time.
It is busy. Yes. $1 for a week. And then it's less than $5 a month, less than that for each month. Not bad.
Yep.
But we appreciate everyone who has signed up or who's just rocked with us from day one. And if you're one of those people and you don't have a hat, I'll post something to the board about how we're going to get you a hat. I'll figure out the mailing one way or the other.
Awesome. Well, hope everybody enjoyed this edition of the Bengal Tiger Podcast. Appreciate all you guys who subscribe, like, and share the pod. For Shea Dixon, I'm Billy Embody. We'll catch you guys next time on another edition of the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Podcast.